So you guys coming up from the city?
Yeah, we're just heading up for the weekend.
Can I see your license, please?
He wasn't driving.
I didn't ask who was driving. I asked to see his ID.
So how long has this been going on?
Do you smoke in front of my daughter?
There are some films that don't just entertain you for a couple of hours, but stay with you long after the screen fades to black, lingering in your thoughts, quietly unsettling your perception of reality, and forcing you to reflect on deeper truths hidden beneath the surface. Get Out, 2017, is one of those rare cinematic experiences, a film that blends psychological horror with sharp social commentary in a way that feels both gripping and uncomfortably real. Directed by Jordan Peele, the movie marked a significant moment in modern filmmaking, proving that horror could be more than just fear. It could be a mirror held up to society, exposing its most uncomfortable layers. At the center of the story is Chris Washington, a talented photographer navigating his relationship with his girlfriend, Rose Armitage, portrayed by Allison Williams. Their relationship, on the surface, seems normal, even affectionate, but there's an underlying tension that begins to build before they even reach their destination. Chris, as a black man, is acutely aware of the potential discomfort that might arise when meeting Rose's white family for the first time. He asks her a simple but loaded question: does her family know he's black? Rose reassures him casually, almost dismissively, suggesting that her parents would have voted for Obama a third time if they could. It's a line that initially comes off as humorous, but later reveals itself as a subtle warning, hinting at a deeper, more insidious kind of racism that hides behind politeness and liberal attitudes. When they arrive at the Armitage estate, the setting immediately begins to feel off. The house is large, isolated, and eerily quiet, surrounded by dense woods that seem to swallow any sense of normalcy. There's something about the place that feels detached from reality, almost like stepping into a carefully constructed illusion. Chris notices the black servants on the property, Walter and Georgina, and their behavior is unsettling from the start. They speak and move in ways that feel unnatural, their smiles too forced, their mannerisms too stiff, as if they're imitating something rather than genuinely expressing themselves. Rose's parents, Dean and Missy Armitage, played by Bradley Whitford and Catherine Keener, welcome Chris with an almost exaggerated warmth. Dean's attempts to connect often come across as awkward and overly eager, filled with comments that try too hard to appear progressive. He praises black culture in a way that feels performative, reducing it to surface-level admiration rather than genuine understanding. Missy, on the other hand, exudes a quiet intensity, her calm demeanor masking something far more disturbing beneath. She takes an immediate interest in Chris, particularly his smoking habit, and offers to help him quit through hypnosis, a suggestion that seems harmless at first, but quickly becomes one of the most terrifying elements of the film. That night, Chris finds himself unable to sleep, drawn into a strange and deeply unsettling experience when Missy hypnotizes him. The scene is executed with chilling precision, pulling both Chris and the audience into what becomes known as the Sunken Place. It's a void-like state where Chris is conscious but completely powerless, watching his own body from a distance as if trapped behind a screen. The concept is horrifying not just visually, but psychologically, representing a loss of control so absolute that it strips away identity itself. It's in this moment that the film reveals its true nature, not just a horror story, but an exploration of autonomy, identity, and the terrifying consequences of having your voice taken away. As the weekend progresses, the tension escalates with the arrival of extended family and friends for a gathering that feels more like an exhibition than a social event. Chris becomes the center of attention, with guests making invasive comments about his physique, his lifestyle, and even his genetic makeup. Their fascination with him is disguised as admiration, but it carries an unsettling undertone, as if they're evaluating him rather than simply engaging in conversation. One guest's comment about black bodies being in fashion is particularly disturbing, reducing identity to something consumable, something that can be admired, used, and ultimately discarded. amid this growing discomfort, Chris encounters Logan King, another Black guest whose behavior mirrors that of the servants, detached, unnatural, and deeply unsettling. When Chris tries to connect with him, hoping to find some sense of familiarity or understanding, Logan's response is robotic and distant, as if he's not entirely present. It's only when Chris uses his phone's flash to take a picture that something breaks through, triggering a moment of panic in Logan. He grabs Chris and urgently tells him to get out, a sudden shift that feels like a desperate warning breaking through layers of control. This moment becomes a turning point, pushing Chris to question everything around him. The pieces of the puzzle begin to fall into place, revealing a horrifying truth about the Armitage family and their guests. What initially appeared as awkward social interactions and subtle unease transformed into something far more sinister, a calculated system designed to exploit and erase identity under the guise of admiration and progressiveness. The brilliance of Get Out lies in how it builds this realization slowly, allowing the audience to experience the same confusion and dread as Chris. The horror doesn't rely solely on jump scares or gore. Instead, it emerges from the gradual unraveling of reality, the creeping understanding that something is deeply wrong. The film uses its premise to explore themes of systemic racism, cultural appropriation, and the commodification of Black bodies, all while maintaining the tension and suspense of a psychological thriller.
As Chris digs deeper, the true purpose of the Armitage estate is revealed, a place where wealthy individuals can essentially take over the bodies of others, transferring their consciousness and leaving the original person trapped in the sunken place. It's a concept that is both fantastical and disturbingly metaphorical, reflecting real-world dynamics in a way that feels all too plausible. The idea of losing control over your own body, of being reduced to a silent observer in your own life, becomes a powerful allegory for marginalization and exploitation. Betty Gabriel delivers a particularly haunting performance as Georgina, capturing the eerie duality of someone who appears composed on the surface but is clearly struggling beneath. Her moments of emotional conflict, especially when cracks begin to show in her controlled demeanor, are some of the film's most chilling scenes, highlighting the human cost of what's happening behind the scenes. What makes Get Out so effective is its ability to balance its horror elements with moments of dark humor and social satire. The film doesn't just aim to scare, it aims to provoke thought, to challenge assumptions, and to create discomfort that lingers beyond the viewing experience. It forces the audience to confront the idea that racism isn't always overt or aggressive. It can be subtle, insidious, and hidden behind smiles and compliments. The climax of the film is both intense and cathartic, as Chris fights to reclaim his autonomy and escape the nightmare he's been trapped in. The struggle is not just physical, but symbolic, representing a fight against a system designed to suppress and control. Every action he takes carries weight, every decision driven by the instinct to survive and the determination to break free. By the time the story reaches its conclusion, Get Out leaves a lasting impact that goes beyond its runtime. It's not just a horror film, it's a statement, a piece of art that uses genre to explore complex social issues in a way that feels accessible yet deeply profound. Jordan Peele crafted a film that redefined expectations, showing that horror can be intelligent, meaningful, and culturally significant without losing its ability to entertain. Even years after its release, Get Out continues to be discussed, analyzed, and appreciated for its layered storytelling and bold approach. It opens doors for new kinds of narratives within mainstream cinema, proving that audiences are ready for stories that challenge them, that make them think as much as they feel. And perhaps that's the film's greatest achievement. It doesn't just ask you to watch, it asks you to see, to question, and to understand the world a little differently than before.